Buddy, my name is Garrett Schmidt, and I am the CEO and managing editor of BBC Exhibit Hall. And I'd like to welcome you all to today's live webinar hosted by DataGen. And this one's titled Ready, Set, Refresh, 5 Touchstones of a Culturally Successful Practice. We're going to be sharing a lot of great takeaways and some practicals here, so very excited about the presentation today. A few items of note before we get started, just some housekeeping items. Today you're all in listen only mode. So this is like kind of a traditional webinar format. So we can't see you or hear you. So you don't need to worry about your camera or your microphone. But we are going to have a time for some Q&As because we do want to hear from you. And we're going to do that towards the end of the presentation. So if you have any questions at all for our speaker, you can ask them at any time during the presentation by using your control module. There's a specific place for questions, and you can drop them there. And if we don't get to your question for some reason, if we run out of time, don't worry. Someone will reach out via email to make sure that gets answered. We're also going to have a couple polling questions just for fun to engage the audience. And so you'll get a chance to participate in that as well. Finally, the session today is being recorded. So when we conclude, maybe about an hour or so afterwards, you're going to receive an email, and that'll have a link to the webinar recording as well as to where you can download the slides. And I'm sure you're going to want to do that because there's a lot of great information on these slides. So without further ado, wanted to very briefly introduce our speaker, and then I'll turn it over to her. With us today, we have Miss Mandy Diamond. She is a senior advisor of practice advancement strategies with DataGen. So welcome, Mandy. Glad to have you here.
Thank you all so much. Thank you, Garrett, for the warm introduction. And thank you, everyone, for spending your afternoon, or at least a little slice of your afternoon, with DataGen. We really appreciate it. So we are going to jump in today. Just give me the thumbs up that my slides are advancing. We're good? Awesome.
You're good.
Okay. Excellent. So what are we going to be reviewing today? We'll be reviewing a little bit of who DataGen Practice Advancement Strategies is, and the purpose for our meeting today, and review the 5 touchstones of a culturally successful practice and how to apply them to your businesses, your operations. And then, like Garrett said, we definitely want to open the floor to any questions that you may have. So who is Practice Advancement Strategies, a division of DataGen? DataGen is a subsidiary of Haney's, which is the Healthcare Association of New York State, and we are celebrating at Haney's our 100-year anniversary. So it's really an awesome honor to be part of this organization. My division of DataGen is Practice Advancement Strategies, and what our focus is on consulting and workflow redesign when it comes to people, when it comes to process, and when it comes to anything that has to do with technology in a clinical operation within a practice. We work with practices of various sizes all across the country, of multiple compositions, of different specialties, all in the name of transformation and moving to an outcome-focused culture. We are specialized in the area of accreditation and recognition programs that are authored by NCQA, or the National Committee for Quality Assurance. And some of the programs that we do specialize in providing consulting and education on and guidance on are PCMH, Patient-Centered Medical Home, Patient-Centered Specialty Practice, Health Equity Accreditation, and that's just some to name a few. So we at DataGen Practice Advancement Strategies, we have a really nice relationship with NCQA. We've been a partner for their mission for over 15 years. We provide with them, by using their programs, the right care at the right place, at the right time, by the right person, with the right quality outcomes at the right cost. We assist hundreds of practices across the nation achieve and sustain programs that are meant to drive patient satisfaction, clinical positivity, maximize outcomes, and of course, increase return on investment. So why are we a little bit different than other vendors that may do something similar? PAS acts as a trusted partner within a practice to develop relationships and deliver tools that propel practices forward in many of the endeavors that they engage in. We believe that care delivery optimization is an evolution. It's not a project. Hence why today's conversation is one that could be applied to any practice at any point of the continuum that they may be in. And with that, I do want to know a little bit more about who is on the phone so I can best tailor this presentation. I think I'm going to turn it over to Garrett at this time for a brief poll.
All right. So if you are out there, we want to know who you are, who's with us today. And by the way, we're going to have a couple of these. These are just for fun. It's anonymous. So we'll share the results so you can kind of see who's with us today. And what title best describes your role in your organization? Are you part of the C-suite? Are you a practice manager or administrator? Are you a physician or clinician? Um, Office staff or other? And if it's other, by the way, and something we didn't mention, just drop that in the chat. And curious to see who else is with us that we may not have covered in here. And so I think most folks have answered, but we're going to give it another maybe 5 long seconds here, and then we'll close it down. 5, 4, 3, 2, and 1. Okay, so it looks like we have 0% at the C-suite, which I don't believe that. I think we got someone out there. But 25% of you are at the practice manager, administrator level. We got 17%, and of course there may be some overlap here, are physician clinicians. And then 58% of you are other. And so let's see, and we have a DSO, we've got data analyst, some other folks are dropping stuff in, revenue cycle optimization, patient access. Yeah, very cool. So we've got a lot of great representation today. So thanks for joining us.
That is awesome. And the one thing that I will pepper in throughout this whole conversation is that what I talk about today is definitely a team-based sport. So seeing these different pockets represented really is encouraging. And thank you for joining us. And thank you for
All
taking
right,
that
back to
poll.
you.
Excellent. So what is the purpose for today? The purpose of the program is to instill the value of pausing, assessing, and ensuring that our practices are steadfast and strong to keep providing the care that's expected of us, but also thrive when we are faced with twists, turns, changes, alterations of what we consider to be our normal. So think about your offices and think about those long taxing days that we live. And the basics sometimes become a little bit blurry or become a little bit lost. As our practices are continually striving to keep up with the ever-changing healthcare environment, we want to stay competitive and successful. It is necessary to keep the foundation strong. Think of a home that's built on a strong foundation or not built on a strong foundation. With every brisk wind or harsh storm, the house is going to lose a shingle, potentially crack a window, or maybe it can flood, and all of these things weaken the home. The same is to be said about our practices. If we keep our core strong, there is no storm that we cannot tackle or new initiatives that we can't take on. Not to say we won't be uncomfortable at times, as we'll see in a little bit, but we will be agile. So what are we going to accomplish today? We want to first understand the need to reset and really think about our practices abilities. So why is it important to pause and reset? Then we want to think about what are the pillars or what are the key focus areas that we should be putting our reset thinking caps onto, and how do we apply that into our practice day in and day out. So let's paint a picture, one that many of you on the phone, especially our managers, our physicians, our analysts, so on and so forth, are very probably familiar with. So as you know, there are many plates that we keep spinning on basically every day. And we want to speak about needing that firm foundation. And here is the reason why. First, think about everything we are doing. Our staffs, our physician are having competing priorities. Demands from internal and external entities are jumping at us. And of course, we have many demands and many needs to meet when it comes to our patients. Time, or rather, I say lack thereof, with more priorities and everything has a pressing deadline, time is usually never in our favor. Then, of course, we're dealing with insurance payers. We have what I call the lions and tigers and bears. We have authorizations, referrals, we have coding issues, we have denials that come in at rapid rate, and we have changes to our payments, which all impacts our bottom line. We have technology, which our technology does ease certain tasks. It definitely comes with its own set of hurdles, new functionalities to take on, and pieces are implemented and upgrade regularly that definitely does shake our foundation. Then we think about the patients that we serve as they are becoming more and more complex, and we're caring for an aging population that has multiple comorbidities, social determinants, diversities, and behavioral health needs. Then we think about policy, and changes are happening daily. Every time we open a journal, look at our phones, or turn on the television. And we have to be at the ready to brace for the changes that are ahead. We also know that we're dealing with an extreme amount of stress and burnout, which leads to shutting down, tasks not be completed to the best of anyone's ability, which obviously opens us up to gaps and leaks. And what does that do? It all impacts our bottom line or our return on investment, which at the end of the day leads to our balance sheets being impacted, which causes immeasurable stress on all levels. This chaos is what we have normalized, but in keeping the plates spinning, we forget who does what and most importantly, why. We also, in this tornado of daily survival, forget what happens when a cog in this wheel breaks. When we fail to tend to the heart of our practice, the following can happen and unfortunately will happen. What do we experience? We have lack of direction, quality gaps, staff dissatisfaction, patient dissatisfaction, our expenses go high, our expenses rise. We have leakage. Our patients may find other places to seek their medical care. We have communication breakdown, inconsistent workflow, and most importantly, many missed opportunities. So, how do we avoid these pitfalls as best as possible? It is important to reinforce our core. To avoid the crash, practices must dedicate time to keep their core strong, purposed, and growing. This exercise is aimed to keep the team organized, directed, and engaged. When a team is working with reinforcement, outcomes are positive. Think about pausing and applying these principles when taking on new programming, during implementations of a policy or technology, when anticipating a move or taking on new patients or providers, or to be truly honest, if nothing pressing is happening, it's just good practice to apply these refreshals for a moral boost. So this is a real quote, and I will tell you what it says. It says, Mandy, this is all fluff. When do we get down to the actual work? So I'm going to tell you a little bit of story when it comes to that quote. And it resonates with me even now, 15 years later. When I began working with practice advancement strategies, one of my first large clients, it was a huge organization and they wanted to transform into a patient-centered medical home, which if any of you on the phone know, that is not an easy undertaking. I was going through a video conference just like this, and the practice lead from somewhere off camera just screamed that quote that you see there. Enough of the fluff, let's move on. So I was always directed that the client is always right. So what did I do? I left my normal engaging explanatory manner and I went to this check the box mentality with them, which I really didn't like and I don't subscribe to. And the reason I don't subscribe to that is because I know when we take on projects and just check the box to get them done, it doesn't come with any sustenance. It doesn't come with any ownership. It doesn't come with any accountability or understanding or buy-in. So as the weeks passed, the team shared with me that they were lost. They were missing that purpose, not understanding the direction or the reasons that I had them doing things. And I started to pepper back in some of that fluff that they originally wanted to cut out. The team was craving the conversations, the explanations, the accountabilities, and that ownership. They wanted to know the why and how to seamlessly tackle this undertaking as a united team, not siloed. It was a perfect example of how imperative the purpose really is. So now we're going to talk about that purpose and how we break the purpose down into 5 key touchstones in a practice. When it comes to purpose, I categorize it in this manner: vision transparency, do it with them, not to them, perception versus reality, get comfortable with the uncomfortable, and lastly, I know it sounds a little fun and cheesy, but add some sparkle or celebration to every day. So I want to break that down. But before we do, I would also like to turn it back over to Garrett to ask everyone the question of why. What is your why at work or in your career every day? So, Garrett, with that, I'm going to let you take over the next poll.
Yeah, so this one is kind of interesting, and we debated whether to do a have kind of an open-ended question to let you guys choose or write in what your why is, but we thought maybe give you a couple choices here to choose from. And again, this is anonymous, so feel free to be honest here, because we're going to show the results here, and you'll be able to see kind of where you stack among your colleagues. And it's okay to have different motivations for doing what you're doing. But once again, if there's something that we're not covering, or even if we do, but you have something else that you wanted to mention in this regard, in terms of your why of why you do what you do, drop that also in the chat, because that could be interesting to know. And so the first one is, well, the paycheck is nice, and that is a realistic motivation for a lot of us. It's near my home and convenient, also realistic and makes sense. I enjoy making a difference in the lives of my community. Um, the next one is, I'm eager to grow and advance my career. And I understand that there may be a little bit of all these involved, but if you had to pick
Mm-hmm.
one. And then finally, other, and if we didn't cover it, just let us know in the chat. So I think we're going to give it another few seconds here, because I think people are adding and some are maybe reevaluating. Again, if you had to do the top one, and that's
And
what
I
we'll,
always say
we have.
that this is a very safe space. If any of my
Yeah.
clients, I think some of them are on the phone. I always say when we work together, this is a safe space. So it's like the cone of silence. So we take an oath to be honest with each other, because that's where the work begins. And I know where we're starting from. It's so important. So please feel free to be honest.
Yeah, we're not going to send the results here to your manager. Um, so, all right, I think most people have had a chance to vote here. So I'm going to go ahead and close it down in 5, 4, 3, 2, and 1. And again, if there's others, please let us know. Okay, so it looks like 64% of you said, I enjoy making a difference in the lives of my community, which is awesome. And that doesn't
Love it.
surprise me from this crowd. This is a special audience to do this kind of work. And then 27% of you said, I'm eager to grow and advance my career, which is also great. And kudos to you. We didn't have any that said the paycheck is nice or is nearby, but I'm sure, that can be a motivator for some of us. And then we had 9% of you that said other. And so anyway, here, actually, let me read these. One person says, I love to take care of our patients and know that I am making a difference in their lives. I love to teach and
Love it.
grow my staff and my company, which is awesome. So yeah, great stuff.
That is fantastic. I love hearing it. I love hearing that people are in the business. And again, it is a business, even though we are providing healthcare. At the end of the day, it is a business, and people are coming to their place of work every day to really make a difference, make an impact, not only for the patients that they serve, but for themselves. And I think that that is so rewarding and motivating. And even if you said you're coming for the paycheck, there still has to be something that brings you to the table every single day and makes you get out of bed, get in the car, and perform your day-to-day activities. So thank you so much for that honest participation in the poll. I truly appreciate it. So we are going to jump into the pillars now and talk about the five that we introduced just moments ago. But think about your why as we go through these activities. So the first one we're going to talk about is vision transparency. So when we talk about vision and purpose, we need to create motivation. That is the most important thing. What can we do as an organization to promote our mission, our wants, our reach, and our wants and how to reach our goals? We may think our team knows the mission. We may think, yep, everyone knows we're supposed to perform good healthcare every single day and make sure our patients' needs are met. But until the layers of the onion are peeled back, do we really know these answers for sure? So, when we talk about vision transparency, it all starts with leadership from the top down. Leaders cannot provide enough messaging, and the team is inspired by leaders that represent them. That builds what your culture is. Leaders are not only in the C-suites, but leaders are also physicians, clinical leads, managers, and anyone who takes on accountability. One thing I do want to stress is that anyone that's participating on this call today, I consider you a leader because you're taking this course to bring back information to your team. And as you just mentioned in the why poll, to better expand your own knowledge base. It's important to have or impart clear messaging in multiple ways, verbally, visually, and in other ways that could be referred to at a later date. Communication should not be reactive, but definitely proactive and intentional. The frequency of communication and methodologies of communication should be scheduled, and it's just as important as hosting a budget meeting or board reports. Goals should be identified and clear. They should be, what do we want now in the short term, and what do we want to see in the long term? They should reflect the personnel of your practice. They should talk about what we strive for when it comes to our patients, how our practice is going to continue to soar, and what that overall means to the organization that we serve. Communication should be collaborative to ensure knowledge transfer and resonance. A team built aim statement, outcome results, charters, these things are what leads to progress. Vision should always be open to questions and to conversation and dialogue. So I'm going to show you one of the tools that a practice that I work with uses. This is a snapshot of a very large organization that all at once was taking on an EMR change and also implementing one of NCQA's accreditation programs. They have a charter when it comes to how to implement their new EMR and also transform with all the different pieces of the puzzle that they needed to tackle. But they knew that before they started that journey, they needed to slate a communication touch point on a recurring basis. They asked the teams to come to these meetings with questions prepared, and the leaders take the time to roll up their sleeves, walk the walk of the team, and share their vision while also ensuring that the team feels on board and energized by the conversations. This team has taken on not only one, but unfortunately two EMR changes in the past years, which is no small feat, as many of us know. And they are also now a seasoned patient-centered medical home for upwards of 5 years. But again, it all starts with a multi-layered communication plan that happens in multiple formats and at multiple times with multiple purposes. The next pillar is do it with them and not to them. So this slide is really telling, right? We have a provider here who looks like they are giving their opinion on what should be done. And then, as you can see where those arrows are headed, we have two very concerned staff members, right? There could be some confusion there could be some hesitation, and potentially there could be some fear. The mantra of being collaborative instead of a single party rule will make a huge difference when you are developing a successful culture. So when we talk about do it with them, not to them, we want to remember that every team member plays a very valuable role in making the machine chug forward. Accountabilities based on ability and skill are welcomed as opportunities to own a piece of the puzzle and personally feel vested in the outcomes. When there's an opportunity to grow, receive education, and develop a role to further personal growth, assigned interest blossoms. Each role has a voice, knows of best practice, and understands the why something is working or why something is not working. Think about something as simple as changing the way we use our EMRs in our practice. We as leaders may say, now we are going to document problem lists on page 2 of the intake form in the lower right-hand side, but we used to do it on page 1 of the intake form on the upper left. And while that seems like such an easy change, we really haven't consulted with our subject matter experts to see how many extra clicks does that really take? How many extra minutes am I going to have to put into my day to adjust to that change? There is no barrier that's too small to not address. When we see frustration building, we need to nip it before it's escalated. Conversations about how to make a situation better, even if we have no choice but to pursue, will be easier if we unpack the roadblocks and silos and listen to the reasoning and produce digestible solutions. Let's see if I can, okay, now it's advancing. So this is another fun example of a true story of working with a practice. So what happened is this team was trying to break true barriers and silos when it comes to getting to the root of meeting documentation needs and satisfaction scores from their patients. The physicians were continually running behind schedule. They felt they were accountable for too many of the needs, from referrals to lab orders to coding to care plans to documenting all the needs of a comprehensive health assessment. So they were feeling stressed, burnt out, and frustrated. And their leaders and their C suite was coming down on them regarding their Press Ganey surveys. So, what did we do? So, I worked with the team to call out all the job duties that they had, and we wrote every single one, whether it be large, small, or anything in between, we wrote them on sticky notes. We put those sticky notes on a board under the staff member who currently owned the role. And then we reshuffled to who was going to own the job moving ahead based on reasoning, conversation, and logical, inclusive back to back dialogue. The goal was to even the playing fields of accountability, make sure that the columns of the clinical team, the clerical team, and the other teams were as even as possible. We wanted to listen to the clinical team who felt too taxed, resolve the patient complaints about wait times, and utilize all the team members to the top of their license. This team had a blast with this activity. It's one that I repeat with them every 2 or 3 years. Again, when they have new team members or there's big changes within their practice. And they really felt part of a solution that, like I stated, is going on today. Oops, there we go. This is, I think, my favorite part of the pillar conversation. We don't know, is this a 6 or is this a 9? And the truth is, we really won't ever know. The funny thing with perception is it's a guess or a gut feeling at best. Do our patients like us? Is our staff satisfied? These are questions that we need to know the answers to very often and accurately. The issue with perception is that reality is the true north, and a team will falter if it does not rely on actuality. So, what we need to do is remember that data needs to be our partner in crime. When we refresh, we should be absorbing as much data as we can to know what is working and what is not. Data provides clarity and identification of opportunity. Our data needs to be stable, and we need to feel confident about the integrity of the data and the output. Without credible data to look at and analyze, undertakings, projections, and vision becomes blurry, or it's unstable with best guessing. Let's look at some critical questions that we need to ask when it comes to perception versus reality in our own practices. So if we were to read each of these statements in the purple box, first in front of it say, what do we think? And then read the same statement, but in front of it say, what do we know? We may get different answers. So let's first start with the first one. We think our patients are quite satisfied, but from our Press-Ganey scores, we see that we can now say we know they are showing that only 65% of them would recommend our practice to a family member or friend. Why is that? We should bring these facts to the team to try to dissect what is the root of the dissatisfaction, or how do we raise those scores. We think we treat hypertensives the most, but our data is showing us that we know that depression is far exceeding hypertensives in 2025. Have we been focusing on the wrong path? Have we been putting our energies into the wrong resources? Are we not addressing the true needs of our patient population? We think our team is happy at work, but are they? Do we have blind, like I say, safe space conversations or surveys or one-on-ones with our team where we're able to get to know them, to understand what they are satisfied with and what they feel can be improved? Do we promote that culture where their voice counts? We think we are capturing clinical and demographic documentation accurately, but we run reports and now we know that BMI is only captured 52% of the time. Is there a training opportunity that we are missing? Is there a button that we're not pressing within the EMR, even though we know that we're capturing this information, or we think we are capturing this information? Do we need new hires to be acclimated to some of these needs? We think our EMR alerts us of admissions, but really that comes from our health information exchange that ties into our EHR. We notice we haven't been receiving these admission notifications as of late, and we've been working with the EMR to resolve. But again, have we been wasting time because we should have known that that is truly stemming from the health information exchange? So we were wasting time and resources. Perception and reality checks cause action, and those actions truly do result in betterment. Next, we are going to talk about this picture. It really is true of who we are, not only in our probably our personal lives, but also in our professional lives, just due to what we saw on the slides a little bit ago, the chaos that is everyday life. Sometimes we are so used to doing the same thing over and over again, then when there is an opportunity to change or to adopt something that is going to better us, we just don't have time, or we say, you know what, we've got it, we've always done it this way, we're not interested. So we all know that expression, we've always done it this way, and it's probably my biggest pet peeve, because in all honesty, change is great. Even when it results in failed attempts, there is so much to learn from a detour. To progress requires change, and changes on any scale require agility and the mindset to try. So when we say get comfortable with the uncomfortable, we need to get uncomfy. We open doors to a few aches and pains at first, but the outcomes are definitely rewarding. When a team is comfortable for a while, there is always an area to shift that experience to and replicate it. Sometimes we must start really slow and we have to pilot that uncomfortableness, but sometimes we could big bang and we can roll it out. But when we take on the uncomfortable in a manageable way, meaningful impacts are felt. So let's start to explore some of the ways that we can become uncomfortable with some real life examples from practices that we at Practice Advancement Strategies are engaged with. So the first one is in regards to quality. So I work with a practice that for 2 years, they want to report for their medical home recognition and their HEDIS recognition. They want to report on the fact that their documentation of current meds, which is CMS measure 68 for those on the phone, has always hovered around 60, around 96 to 98%, which is truly high and great. So, what I interpret that as is that this measure or this workflow is interwoven into their organizational core. They know that they're collecting it. It becomes almost like brushing their teeth in the morning. It's part of their culture, it's who they are. They know they are updating their medications. It's easy to report on this measure as the teams built a report to auto run each quarter. And that was a hard task to bring the right people to the table from the clinical and technical team. But what if we paused? We took that same effort that it took to build that report and all the nuances that went with it and explored a different coordination measure that we can replicate results like that. So for instance, what if we looked at closing the referral loop? Are our patients getting the needs that we prescribe for them when it comes to working with our clinical neighbors? Because right now we're only at 45% of referral loop closure. Could we make an impact on this measure if we put the right people in the right seats of the car in order to replicate what we did with medication updating? The second one is we continually see gaps remaining from patients with diabetic care. So we give patients their referrals to endocrinologists and to have lab work done and to go to see other specialists that are imperative to their care. But every 3 months, we run our data and our A1C results are still growing instead of reducing, or I should say, A1C of 9 or higher is growing and not reducing. So, what can we do? Is there community resources that we might not have tapped into yet? Have we tried to adopt things like remote patient monitoring? Have we enrolled patient in care management programs, both internally or externally? Do we help patients schedule necessary follow up, or do we leave it in their own control? While initially these workflows are definitely going to be taxing and hard, the reward is awaiting. In our third example, we think about clinical staff who is struggling to collect all the components necessary to complete their charts. So we have to look at why, and we also have to look at what are some of the options that we might not yet have explored. How do we get uncomfortable? Have we done enough education on patient portal usage? Could we have ownership and accountability with our patient panel? Do we have data collection means in the practice for patients to use while they're waiting to see the clinician, maybe on paper or electronically? Have we parsed out the roles in the clinical and clerical team to assist? The next one is our patient satisfaction surveys. We notice that not only are results in how many or the quantity of the results are declining, but we're noticing that the dissatisfaction rate is rising. So, do we encourage our patients to take our surveys like we do for our internal team and explain the reason why these surveys are so important to provide you the most optimal care, to give you the experience that you deserve? Do we try to engage patients in these surveys in multiple platforms to meet them where they are? Again, taking on more, but the outcome will definitely be rewarding. And lastly, we're noticing that our no-show rates are on the rise. Are we slicing into the reasoning of those no-shows? Do we need to make more reminder calls? Do we need to utilize our portal, self or secure messages? Do we need to help our patients with transportation needs or encourage televisits in order for them to keep their visits because their schedules are so busy? What are the options that we have yet to take? These are definitely uncomfortable interventions at first, but eventually, when adopted and the benefits are there, they make the discomfort and time seem trivial. And lastly, speak of rewarding implementation, celebration. There is no better time than right now or daily to celebrate something good. Human nature feeds on knowing that a job was well done or it was noticed when an employee stepped out of the box. Celebrate the small stuff as much as the large. I have to be honest, even today before this call, I was on another call with a group that is transforming to a patient centered medical home. And one of them, very honestly, I was asking them how they are doing with collecting patients' feedback on the type of access that they provide to them. And one of the very diligent staff members said, Mandy, I'm so sorry. Out of the 30 responses that you wanted us to pursue, I only got 10. And she sounded really defeated. So what did I do? I immediately turned that around and I said, you know what? So you're telling me you're a third of the way there? Kudos, job well done. And what that did is, again, boosted their confidence. They thought, again, they're doing an awesome job and it's little steps toward a huge milestone. So even when problems, or so it seems, are presented, there's an easy way to turn that around and make it positive. A culture is driven by knowing there is appreciation and recognition. Even an effort, if an effort was made at the end, and if it didn't pan out, someone was willing to try, and that is something to celebrate. The most successful sites that I work with are ones that repeatedly spread positivity even in the hardest days. It does not have to be grand gestures whatsoever. I have seen meetings where staff members are called out. I see computers that I walk by with a sticky note that says, great job. I see notes on the team whiteboards where someone did something great, or I see pictures or smiley faces drawn. I have seen some pizza parties, some Starbucks gift cards, all in the name of appreciation. And a leader alone, I do want to mention, is not one that needs to call out another staff member. Peer to peer recognition is so important because that culture is most meaningful because peers are motivating to raise each other. So, this is a true to life example of a positive experience in one of our practices. This is a practice that is striving to increase their quality improvement measures. And one of the measures that they were looking to better was, what are our patients saying about us? What is their overall experience? And some of the replies highlighted here, you can see that they said that the staff is excellent. I look forward to working with them again. But they also mentioned specific staff member names. And what happened is this provider that was leading the meeting was sure to call out during the staff meeting who those patients were and what they said about the staff member. And it was received really kindly. There was a round of applause, there were loads of smiles, and this is after a taxing day in a pediatric practice. So it's just again to show you that a little action like calling someone's name out after such a taxing day really can go very far. Whoops, there we go. So now, how do we apply these pillars to our daily business? So again, I've given some examples throughout this presentation, and I hope everyone is seeing the importance of hitting pause and taking the temperature of our practice. For the sake of time, we can't, but I do challenge everyone to do these activities within their practice. And before they do, first ask what is the why? And then when you're done, re ask what is the why. And I'm curious if the answers change. I'm curious too if people would take the time to apply this refresher activity at least annually, take the temperature of the finances from year to year, the culture by performing patient surveys, by performing staff surveys. Think about the technology, what is working, what haven't we explored yet, and think about the outcomes. What opportunities are we missing? What have we done well, and what can we replicate? Use some of the talking points and tools displayed today, or of course, DataGen is always available to help you and provide more when it comes to working within your practice on any undertaking that you may be experiencing, all in the name of transformation. And one of the most important things is to stay organized. And I know that that is really challenging because, again, all those plates in the air. But there is a ton of moving parts to every activity, an agenda and minutes and ways to reference those are extremely valuable. This is just one snapshot of what I call a playbook. So this was created after a practice lost they had huge turnover. Their leadership changed, their EMR changed, they were taken over by a new organization, and they were really nervous how they were going to maintain all of their patient-centered medical home work. So what we did is we created a playbook, and it not only talks about what you need to do daily, but the most important thing is that it talks about the why. Why are we performing these tasks every single day? Who owns them? When does it happen? Where does it happen? How does it happen? These are the answers that we want at our fingertips that we're able to review and share with our teams. Books like this can be used for anything, such as quality initiative tracking, training, EMR usage, coding stipulations, and other activities within the practice. So, with that said, we have a few minutes left, and I definitely wanted to leave some room for question and answers. But I hope that you've enjoyed this session and learned the importance of jumping off of the hamster wheel to stop and assess and keep fanning the flames of a bright culture within your practice. In order to succeed, it does start with the team, and the refresh plan, I hope we have all come to agree, is definitely not fluff when the results reflect the effort. So I do thank everyone today, and I know we are definitely not done because I do want to hear from everyone. I want to take some questions and answers. So I would like to turn it over to Garrett to help me navigate those questions and answers.
All right. So if you have a question for Mandy, go ahead and drop that now in your question module there, or as you know, as something maybe piques your interest here, or as a question as you listen to the others, go ahead and drop that in. We're going to get to as many as we can. If we do have a lot of questions today, so if we don't get to yours, then don't worry, someone will make sure to reach out via email to answer that. So let's go ahead and dive in. First question is this. What are some tips you can provide to overcome staff resistance to changes in daily workflow?
Yes, and this is one that I hear very often. Great question. The most important thing is understanding what the specific resistance is for that staff member and getting to the bottom of what's in it for them. So, for instance, I was working with a practice and there was a staff member who we were adopting care plans. And it was taking a little bit more time to document on every patient, and they felt that they were getting out of the office later and later and later. And just by coming into the practice, I saw the frustration on this one nurse's face. And I knew that if we don't talk about it, that is going to permeate throughout the practice. So it's important to get to it early. So what I did is I just said, hey, let's go talk and let me learn a little bit about what's going on. And what worked so well was understanding her personal barriers that by taking on more and more documentation, she's staying later and later and she's getting to her son's soccer game every day a few minutes late, and it's really bothering her and making her son upset. So, what I would say to resistance is find out what is the importance of that resistance to that individual person. Because some people may just say, you know what, I just don't want to document more. But another person says, I do want to do it, but here's what you have to understand from my perspective, it's that it's impacting X, Y, and Z. So always make the effort to understand the what's in it for that individual and try to come to a mutual understanding.
Wonderful. All right, next question is when hiring new team members, what strategies do you recommend for assessing whether a candidate will align with and actively contribute to the kind of positive workplace culture you are describing?
Love that question. So I would say the first thing is if you can paint, you would ask on the interview, ask the ask the question, what is your ideal culture? Ask them
Mm,
what they expect from a leader. Ask them what they expect from their direct manager. Ask them what they expect from their colleagues. Ask them what they expect for not only themselves presently, but where do they want to go in 5 years from now? Understanding where that person's drive is, what their visions are, is definitely going to help you when assessing if you're picking the right person to fit into your work family.
awesome. Love it. Okay, next question here is what is the best roadmap to follow when facing a huge change like a new EMR, adoption of a new specialty, new ownership, etc.?
So the first thing I can say is transparency, transparency,
Mhm.
transparency. And the second thing I can say is as early as possible. So when we know a change is coming, we want as much of an on ramp as we possibly can get. That is going to help us because the more of an on ramp that we have as leaders, the more training and preparation we can give to our team and the more communication that we can generate. It also gives us more time to pull in subject matter experts because we want to hear from everyone that's impacted. We want these kind of huge undertakings to be as inclusive as possible. So, what I would say when you're undergoing something huge like an EMR, number one, have a charter. Number two, have a very robust, I don't like to use the word project plan because to me, a project has a very firm start and an end. I like to say more of like a criteria map. Put that together and definitely develop what you feel would be the most optimal type of communication to make sure voices are heard.
Wonderful. Next question. Of all the strategies you have shared, if only one could be implemented, which practical step would you consider most impactful in driving meaningful culture change?
I might have to say two, so forgive me. But communication can never be too much. And I really love perception versus reality because I find that in every practice that I work with. Everyone says one thing about one or more of the areas that we touched upon, but we really, especially in today's culture and today's environment, we need to rely on our data. More and more is being held on the data that we provide. So my two would be our communication and the data that we can lean on.
Great. Next question is how do we engage the team in quality activities?
This is, again, one of my favorite topics and something that I do on a daily basis. The first thing I say is quality is a team sport. And just because we have a dashboard in a C suite doesn't mean that that information is trickling down. So, again, how are we sharing information from the top down? Does everyone know how we are currently doing in quality metrics that we are being held accountable? Maybe from our own incentive programs, maybe from payers that we're aligned with. Do we know what our specific office is, and even dice it a little further, what our specific providers, what their outcomes are? And then we want to hear from the individuals on if we can do something to improve our depression screening rates, if we can do something to improve our rates of referral closure. We want to talk to those subject matter experts that touch this, that eat this and breathe this every single day. When we bring people to the table, not just to listen, but actually to have a voice, it definitely makes an impact. I also will say that nothing works better than a little treat. So if we can have quality meetings when there's some sweets available, food is always a good motivator, and it definitely gets the juices flowing and the brain activity at its highest.
Awesome. Next question here. This is a cool one. Do you have any books, podcast authors that you personally recommend that you've drawn inspiration from?
That is so cool. So I do, and I think I have put some of them in the follow-up slides. So Garrett,
Oh,
if you would, yeah. So if you can send those out, that would be
of course.
great. There's definitely a few titles. And if I didn't send you that slide, I will absolutely get it to you. So
Okay.
the wonderful thing about going to so many conferences and really not only being a leader in patient-centered medical home, but what we pride ourselves on is change management, is we do a lot of reading and a lot of reference to make sure that we are understanding the latest and the greatest. And I want to better myself every single day, and I want motivation. So I definitely have some authors that I love and some books that have propelled me even when I felt overwhelmed. So I am happy to share that in the follow-up.
Very cool. Last question here is how do prospective clients find your team for guidance and tools?
Absolutely. So again, if anyone is looking not only for transformation assistance with programs like patient-centered medical home or patient-centered specialty care or health equity accreditation, but you're also looking to maybe better assess your value-based commitments and transform your practice into a more outcome-focused culture, or you're looking to do a deep dive of assessing how your culture is currently performing and how we can improve, by all means, you want to visit us on datagen.info. We also, in the follow up, I put my LinkedIn, I put Datagen's LinkedIn, and I also put in our practice advancement strategies page as a LinkedIn reference that you can reach out to us as well. If I can advance the slides
Yep.
as well, I'll go back to that. This is my information. That is my personal work line, and that is my personal cell phone, as well as my email, and also our datagen.info generic box, and everything would be routed to me. So I am very excited to link with you.
Well, that's a great segue as we wrap up here. We are out of time, but again, if you have a question that is kind of burning right now, go ahead and drop it in. Someone will reach out via email to make sure that gets answered. But Mandy, thank you so much for a fantastic presentation. There was obviously a lot of great information here. We're going to be sending out a link to the recording and to the slides. And as Mandy teased, there is some bonus slides at the end of the downloadable version that we didn't get to in today's presentation, including some references to some other resources and materials. And so you don't want to miss that. So definitely get that download. Also, head over to vbcexhibithall.com. Check out the DataGen virtual exhibit booth. And here you can really drill down on them. If you're interested in learning more about them and their team, and what they're doing, there's a lot of great resources here about them. There will be a link also in the slides to here. And then, of course, you can reach out to them through there. And then finally, as Mandy shared earlier, if you want to reach out to her directly or to the DataGen team, her information is on that final slide. And or if it's easier for me to, or for you to reach out to me, I'm happy to facilitate an introduction as well. And that would be great. But I wanted to, again, thank you all so much for joining us today. Thank you, Mandy, for a wonderful and thorough presentation. We hope that you join us for the next one. And until then, have a great rest of your day.
Thank you. Have a great afternoon.
Bye-bye, everybody.